Good morning, y'all. Welcome into another edition of DNVR Rams Live, presented by our friends at Branded Bills. Head to brandedbills.com. Use that code BBDNVR for 15% off of your first order. We've got a lot to get into. It's been an interesting week here in Ram country. A lot of opinions flying around, which makes sense. That's always going to happen when you open up a quarterback competition mid-season. I'll give all my thoughts on it. I will also play about a half-hour interview with Kevin Lytle from yesterday, where I picked his brain on some of this, just kind of gauged where he's at from a panic standpoint. Panic's the wrong word, but just in terms of, how much have the last couple of weeks impacted how he believes in this team, what he thinks they're capable of, the pressure on CSU over these next 2 weeks. A lot of the things that we've been frankly talking about for months, but have only been intensified here with the slow start to the season, especially with the controversial game against Northern Colorado and everything that factored into that. We're mostly going to be talking football today. I did want to lead here just at the very beginning with a couple of positive thoughts on CSU men's basketball. If you missed it, they were invited to participate in the 2026 Maui Invitational. Really exciting opportunity for the program. U of A is going to be there. It's certainly not the tournament that it once was, 10 years ago, where the true premier programs of college basketball are there year in and year out because of some of the other tournaments that pay the players now. It has kind of impacted the field, but I was looking at it and I kind of felt like this upcoming field is more enticing than the last couple of seasons. And regardless, this is still one of the biggest MTEs that you can participate in as a Division I men's basketball program. I think this speaks to the ascension we've seen with CSU over the last 5-6 years or so. This is a program that is becoming a household name in the college basketball world. And I just think in your first year in the Pac-12, the opportunity to participate on this stage, to have that national spotlight, is really exciting. And I just honestly have always dreamed of CSU being in this type of position where they're getting invited, when they're, participating in the biggest MTEs, playing big national premier programs, when they're considered, a tournament team from year to year. And that's kind of what this is an indication of to me. That not that the mission is accomplished, because I don't think this needs to be the end of it. Like I think this program can continue to rise, but I do think this is an indication of CSU's arrival on a national level. It's exciting, and there's a lot of exciting things happening right now. As Taylor says in the Toyota chat, go Rams versus Notre Dame. The annual whiteout is tonight for CSU volleyball, hosting Notre Dame. Always a really fun experience. If you've never been, Fort Collins, Northern Colorado does a great job of supporting this program. It really is one of the more unique sporting atmospheres that you can experience, and it's affordable for the family. It's a fun opportunity if you don't got anything going on tonight. This weekend, CSU women's soccer, who cracked the top 25 for the first time in program history, will look to remain undefeated, 6-0 right now. They take on DU in Denver. For those Denver Rams out there, maybe an opportunity to support the program this weekend. I believe you can probably just go to those games for free on the DU campus. I'd be surprised if those are ticketed. They're certainly not at CSU. All right, let's just get into it. Let's talk about this quarterback situation. I'll play the interview with Kevin here in about 10 minutes, but I just kind of wanted to start by giving my own thoughts. We'll play a clip of Jay Norvell here in just a second from practice after Wednesday. But I want to start by addressing a couple of misconceptions. These are things that I've seen commented on shows, that have been tweeted at me, that have been tweeted at Kevin as well. So I just want to address them before we get into this quarterback competition. First things first, I think it really is a true competition in a way that has not been true really since Brayden took the gig from Clay Millen back in 2023. Yes, coaches are always going to say that it's a competition. Everybody's trying to push each other. But I mean, it's very clearly been Brayden's gig. And based on the way the reps have been distributed over the years, that's never been in question. Both Kevin and I raised our eyebrows Saturday night when we heard Jay's comments, when we heard him be openly critical of Brayden's performance, talked about missing reads, doubled down on it, and even went back and said that the reads that he was missing were not very hard plays. It just was not a tone that we had ever really heard Jay take when he had, talked about Brayden in any public forum. I just think that it's been all very positive, very defensive of him. And that's, really what it should be as the coach. But you can tell that Jay is feeling the pressure with the way he's kind of letting us know how he really feels and is airing it out here. It's just very starkly different from the commentary that we've heard the past couple of years. And I do put some stock into that. Now that's not to say that I think Brayden has lost his gig. It's done. It's over. If I had to bet, my gut still says that it's Brayden starting against UTSA with a very, very short leash. Again, I really do feel like Jackson is getting a legitimate look here in a way that just was not true these last couple of years. Jackson Brousseau is the clear-cut number 2 quarterback. I know there's a lot of comments about Taj Bullock, about Darius Curry potentially being in the mix. I know Paul commented at the beginning, what do I mean when I say Darius Curry is not ready? It's not that he is not physically gifted or anything like that. I've seen him make some pretty impressive throws in some live settings. It's just very inconsistent. And obviously, that's the case with Brayden too. And as Paul says in the Toyota chat, argument can be made BFN wasn't ready when he was thrust into starting. He wasn't. But that's the thing. You want to stop being in a position where you are throwing quarterbacks in the deep end that are not ready for the moment. And that's basically where CSU had been the first couple of years in the Norvell tenure. It was evident with Clay Millen. There were a lot of things that hurt Clay. The lack of continuity just within the offense as a whole was brutal. They didn't have any receivers. The O-line was a mess. Like, it wasn't all on Clay. But he struggled, obviously, and that's basically what allowed Brayden to take the gig, and he kind of had to learn on the fly. But that's what had Jay so optimistic about this year, was that after a couple of years of suffering some lumps, of going through what's supposed to be the learning process, you were supposed to be able to reap the reward of having a third-year veteran this year. And they had put a lot of stock into Brayden. They've invested a lot of time into him. The fact that we're at this stage going into, the third game of the season, obviously CSU's on a bye this week, it's not good, especially based on the stuff that we're hearing from Jay. As far as this somehow being a decision that's been passed down from John Weber, that's just not the case. I've seen so many people tweet that. That's not how this works. If you were an athletic director and you told a head football coach, hey, play this guy, the coach is going to say, some expletives. We don't need to go there, but that's not how this works. It wouldn't happen in any sport. Also, the general manager, Alex Collins, he reports to Jay Norvell. It's not the other way around. Like, the GM isn't going to fire Jay. This isn't pro football. The GM is not the general manager of the entire program as a whole. He's really in charge of the transfer portal operation and managing the financial situation with all the players on the roster. That's what his role is. I just wanted to clear that up. Let's play a clip of Jay Norvell from practice after Wednesday, kind of talking about what he has seen after reevaluating the passing game and specifically the UNC game. I'll give a couple more thoughts, and then we'll start that interview with Kevin Lytle, the Fort Collins, Coloradoan.
We talked about getting the passing game going. We went back and watched that. What are you seeing of, what's your
I just think it's just fundamentals and execution. And, Brayden wasn't as focused early in the game, didn't start very well, and he's just got to get off to a good start and get his footwork going and read it out and give his guys a chance. So we just gone back to our base fundamentals.
Obviously, after the game, you were talking about why you want to stick with him. Do you expect to continue that, or are you looking at change? Anything?
No, we're looking at every option right now in practice, and so we're giving JB some reps with the ones. Brayden's getting some reps as well, but everybody's got to continue to improve, and so every player is the same.
How has the response been from both those guys?
Good.
Positive.
All right, so a couple of things stood out to me there with Jay's comments. That was the first time we had an opportunity to speak with him since post-game Saturday night, when he had been very openly critical of Brayden's play. Talked about those missed throws, talked about a lack of execution, Brayden needing to be locked in and better prepared to play, and just a lot of, frankly, alarming commentary for a third-year veteran. Again, this was supposed to be the year where you were able to reap the reward of having gone through the learning process these last couple of years and kind of had to suffer some lumps along the way. I personally believe that ceiling-wise, when it comes to raw athletic ability, both with legs and arm, I think Brayden is the best athlete on the team. I think he moves well. I think he's deceptively a better athlete than he's probably given credit for. The problem has always been the inconsistency. I mean, there have been some turnover issues as well. He's been prone to some frustrating giveaways throughout his career. But really, it's been about doing the simple things with consistency. That's kind of eluded him over the years. He'll make these incredible throws in the 2-minute drill, drop it in a bucket to Torrey Horton, hit him in stride. He'll make these throws along the sideline that, show off arm strength that really nobody else on the roster is capable of making. And then, he'll spike a little out route or, miss a slant. And the footwork, especially this year, I feel like has been more of a problem than it's even been in the past. It just feels like he has not been in a flow at really any point, other than maybe for a small stretch late in the second quarter and early in the third quarter against Washington. Felt like he kind of got in a rhythm throwing the football there. Since that point, we have not seen the wide receivers be a factor at all. Jackson Warren was not a factor in the game against Northern Colorado. Didn't really understand that. We still have not seen Rocky Beers. I mean, there's just so many things with the passing offense that confuse me at the moment. And I want to be fair to Brayden, because I think clearly he struggled. The fact that we're in this position that speaks to it, but it's not all on him. The receivers do need to be better. I think that schematically you could do some things to help your quarterback get in a rhythm. I love the Taj Bullock wrinkle, and I talked about this with Kevin, but I do wonder if consistently pulling your quarterback off the field 2-3 times, in a series can impact his rhythm and flow a little bit. That's just my opinion. I'm not an offensive coordinator, but I do think Brayden has a lot of talent, and I think he has the ability to do some special things. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the results. And, when you have a coach who's feeling the pressure the way that Jay is, it puts you in a position where you're going to start considering some things. And I think we're to that point now with Jackson Brousseau, with Brayden Fowler-Nicolosi in this quarterback competition. Jackson throws a nice football. I think fundamentally he's pretty sound. I haven't seen anything in a live setting that has led me to believe like, man, this guy is the answer. He's going to spark everything. But to be honest, if you could just start hitting some of these throws with consistency, like, you don't really need John Elway back there, especially with the way that you're going to be able to run the football. But there've been a couple of opportunities to stretch the field where Brayden's just missed the read. There've been a couple of chances to move the ball where he's missed the throw. That can't be happening. And I think part of the problem, especially, and Jay kind of has talked about it, has been the slow starts. It's really been a trend that's been alarming for me. Against UNC, 5 of 12 in the first half for 46 yards, 1 interception, 1 fumble, no touchdowns. You look at the Washington game, 9 of 14 for 69 yards in the first half, no turnovers. Even going back to the Arizona Bowl, 8 of 15 for 105 yards and 1 interception. The last 3 first halves, that's 3 turnovers, about 220 yards of passing offense, and 0 passing touchdowns. And to be in a position where the numbers are that bleak at this stage of his career is just, it's not acceptable. We're not getting enough out of the passing offense right now. And you can put some of that on Brayden. You can put some of that on Jay. I mean, that's kind of the thing when you're the play caller and when you're the quarterback. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. Are there other factors, in the lack of passing success? Most certainly. Kevin, I think, says it at one point in the interview, is it's kind of a chicken and egg situation. Would Brayden play better with better play calling? Probably. Would the play calling seem better if the quarterback was playing better? Most certainly. I mean, that's just kind of how that kind of stuff works. But I do think that it speaks volumes that Jay has been very openly critical of Brayden. And when you hear things like not being prepared and having to go back to base fundamentals when you have a third-year starter, and you were coming into the season talking about him having an opportunity to be on par with the all-time greats and be the winningest quarterback in program history and all that, it just has not visually been what we envisioned. And again, like I still think my gut feeling is that Brayden gets another start with a short leash, but I really do think like Brousseau's going to be in the mix at some point if we don't start to see this passing offense click in a hurry. I wrote a feature on it. I encourage you to all go check it out. I'll have another feature coming out on basketball recruiting. I'm doing something on Carson Strong and his relationship with Norvell. So great time to become a DNVR diehard. But the pressure is on for CSU, and it's very evident. You know, it's not just me saying that. You're going to hear that from Kevin as well. You know, the pressure is on for Brayden. And again, I still think he probably gets one more start, and I think he probably should. I think he's earned that at this point, but it's prove it time. And if not, it's going to be Jackson Brousseau. Now, you know, if Brousseau struggles too, then who knows where you go at that point. You put Brayden back out there on the depth chart wise, it would be Curry, who again has done some stuff, but he's been inconsistent. In the live settings that I've seen, you know, he looks like a young quarterback. That's just going to be how it goes. Maybe you get real crazy and try and throw Bullock out there, but I mean, I think there's a reason he's never attempted, you know, more than 150 pass attempts in a season or whatever it is. Like, he's best suited doing exactly what he's doing at the moment. I know that if this team is going to come even close to reaching its potential, the production that they're getting from under center has got to be so much more consistent, and it's just not a good spot that CSU is in right now. So we're going to play that interview with Kevin Lytle. Let's take a quick break. Let's shout out a couple of our partners, and then we'll keep this rolling. All right. I know a lot of us weren't necessarily feeling this last weekend, but I am in fact still excited to be in season, to have college football back, games every weekend. Looking forward to watching the national slate. You know, hoping to do a little tailgating at some point on one of the buys, maybe catch some other college action. There's just nothing better, and there's nothing easier than getting tickets with our friends over at Game Time. It's just so much easier than the competitors, you know, where you're scrolling endlessly trying to find deals, prices jumping at checkout. You don't have to deal with any of that with our friends at Game Time. The app gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the hack for unloading amazing tickets and experiences in just a few taps. Incredibly easy to use. The Game Time guarantee means you can trust you'll get 100% authentic tickets on time and at the best price. I was just checking, and there's tickets for as low as $32 for the UTSA matchup. A ton of tickets available in the 100 levels for less than 100. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account, redeem that code DNVR for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, create an account, redeem that code DNVR for $20 off. Tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today. I also want to talk to you about Shady Rays. You know that moment when you've left your favorite sunglasses somewhere. Maybe you're on vacation. Maybe you took them to the gym or something like that. You get home, you realize, oh God, I left my shades. You come back, they're probably gone. It is what it is. I've been there. It's the worst, and that's why I love using Shady Rays. They have completely changed the game. These sunglasses are made for real life. They're seriously good-looking, polarized, durable, not stupidly expensive, which is really important. And the wild part is, if you happen to lose or break them, if you have one of those moments, every single pair is backed by lost and broken replacements. We have teamed up with Shady Rays to bring you an exclusive offer. Head to shadyrays.com, use that code DNVR for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Shout out to Shady Rays. All right, let's play part one of that interview with Kevin Lytle. We will talk about the state of CSU football, expectations for the rest of the season, the quarterback situation, and so much more. Really appreciate him giving us some time, and I think you guys are going to enjoy his thoughts on it all. All right, we have got great friend of the program, Kevin Lytle, the Fort Collins, Coloradoan, joining us on the show. It's been a weird week. It's been kind of a long week. I guess just first things first, what are your thoughts, like looking back on this whole weekend? Like, what's your biggest takeaway from this whole controversial game? We don't even need to get into the dynamics of was it a catch, was it or not. I think we all have our opinion at this point. Doesn't feel like there's concrete proof regardless, but I don't know. Like, what was your biggest takeaway? Because I just remember walking to my car being like, I don't even know what I just watched.
Yeah, totally. It still somewhat feels like that. I think the biggest two are somewhat obvious ones. One, just kind of alarm at, especially the first half, how CSU was just so flat because they did, again, we can quibble over some things with the Washington game, but I think overall everyone probably agrees that overall I think CSU played pretty decent. It was a fairly encouraging night on the whole. And then to come out and just, I don't know a better phrase than sleepwalk through the first half was pretty alarming to me. Jay Norvell, I'm sure he wishes he hadn't said it, but had, used the championship DNA phrase in the week leading up to it. And like, that's not what you would expect from a quote unquote championship team. So that was pretty alarming to me. And then, the super obvious one I'm sure we'll get more into is just the quarterback play and the disjointness of the offense as a whole. Those were the two kind of biggest things for me. Yeah, there's the, catch, no catch, all that. It's faint praise, but give a little bit of credit to CSU for, finding a way to scrape back and get a win because, ultimately that was the most important thing. But yeah, just that first half just really, like I said, kind of alarmed me.
I mean, I think you've kind of answered this in a sense of obviously kudos to them for pulling it out, but does this impact things in the big picture sense to you? Like, did this change your belief of, because I mean, realistically, they were always going to be 1-1 to this point. It's just optically, especially in this one, you didn't see anything that you would want to see, especially if, they really were going to be a championship caliber team.
Yeah, I think it's somewhere in the middle for me of I have more concerns than I did, most specifically, again, offense and quarterback play. But also they're 1-1. I also feel very strongly that early season results are very weird in college football. I don't think that's a feeling. I think that's a fact.
Yeah.
And even just look at the Mountain West, UNLV barely beat what's usually a pretty darn bad Idaho State team in week 0, and then they beat UCLA last week. Like a bad, ugly win, if you will, doesn't necessarily mean your season's doomed. I mean, even look to Boise a couple years ago. What was it? They lost to Oregon State. They lost to UTEP. And it was like, oh my gosh, they're off the rails. Like Boise's falling. Guess what? They went undefeated in Mountain West play. So you can have weird early season results and put together. I do think, we talked about this a lot with basketball. This is an excuse because every team is doing it, but you do have a lot new. And I think it means early season results are just weirder across the board. Again, that doesn't guarantee everything will get put together and be great. It also doesn't guarantee everything's going to be bad. But I always use some caution with, week 0, 1, 2, 3, even up to maybe 4 of weird stuff happens.
You wrote about it, and I've written about it and talked about it as well, but Jay was very critical of Brayden post-game in a way that I would say I don't think I've ever heard him be quite that honest in a sense of talking about missing open reads and like doubling down on some of that. And then, he comes back on after Wednesday's practice, confirms that Brousseau is getting some reps with the ones, talked about a lack of consistency with like fundamentals. And he brought up footwork and all the things that, all the fans have been talking about online. Is that surprising to you at all? Or is that, just kind of where we're at this point? We all know the contract situation is what it is. That can change a coach's tune, I guess I would say.
It definitely means something because, Norvell has always been quick to either defend or praise BFN after a game. And there have been some games, even date back to last season. I remember some where it's like, well, that wasn't a great performance. And the first thing Norvell says post-game is some type of praise, the checks at the line or managing the game or whatever it may be. And then this week, it was kind of the reverse. It wasn't a horrible, it's not like he was slamming him or dragging him, but it was appointed. He didn't play well and he needs to play better. And then, like you say, Wednesday kind of doubled down. Said Brayden wasn't focused very well, didn't get off to a good start. Footwork, needs to get his footwork going back to base fundamentals, which those are, I don't want to say damning, that's maybe a little too strong, but those are significant statements. So I think it does mean something. I think it means certainly, like you say, there's pressure, and that, yeah, I'm sure we'll get into this more, but I do think there's a real look going on right now at what to do there.
What do you think I've said it a million times in terms of the pecking order, but I still get the same questions. Why not Curry? Why not Curry? So what do you think about the pecking order right now? Like it's very clearly Brousseau, as in he's the guy that's getting the reps. But I mean, if it truly was a situation where they had switched and then they pulled him and they weren't going to go back to Brayden, like they might really go Bullock before they would go Curry, I think. And that's not to say that Curry has no potential or anything, but I don't think he's ready.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I think this one where, sometimes people get wrapped up in, recruiting rankings and potential. But, I would say in the pecking order, how the coaches have viewed it, it's been, BFN up here, JB here, then Curry further below is pretty clear 1, 2, 3. Now, obviously the JB to BFN has shrunk. But yeah, I mean, Brousseau's got more experience, not necessarily game experience, because no one behind BFN really does, but he's a little older. Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen in some spring scrimmages and stuff, Curry can certainly make some great plays, but probably a little erratic. And, Brousseau, from everything I've heard, is, pretty reliable, very studious. Again, that's not to say others aren't, but I think he's definitely the clear number 2, maybe to be number 1. But yeah, it's just that's the pecking order. Like Curry, I would be surprised if he's in the mix this year. I think it's pretty clearly going to be BFN or JB.
Do you feel like it's as simple as a quarterback shakeup could be all this offense needs, or is this, is this a deeper rooted issue? Like, what do you think about the scheme this year? And I don't know, as much as I do love the Bullock wrinkle, I wonder if at times you have a quarterback who's out of rhythm, constantly pulling him off the field isn't necessarily helping his cause. Jay got a little bit defensive when asked about that on Saturday night. I don't know. I wonder if like it's not going to be that big of a difference, even if you see a change.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of layers. I think that's a fair question, especially the Bullock, how him entering can impact a quarterback. And that could also be one that, as the season goes on and people get more accustomed to, it can smooth that bit. Because I think it's a dangerous option to have in the bag. People love asking about play calling, which I totally understand. We're kind of in chicken and egg arguments right now of, would the QB play be better if play calling was different? Possibly. Would play calling look better if the QB play was better? Probably. Like, both can be true.
Yeah.
So I think you're kind of in a circular argument a little bit right now in all sorts of little CSU fan circles, which I totally get. And they're intangible layers. Like, obviously there's pure physical talent, which I think we know BFN has, but there's also, locker room vibes, which you don't know exactly what that's going to be. Backup quarterback's always super popular amongst the fan base, sometimes until they see the field. But there have been times where, the backup comes in, provides a spark for whatever reason, sort of a spiritual spark, if you will.
A couple of years ago.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's no doubt that when Brayden came in, that uplifted that roster at the time. And it can happen again. I mean, going back to my days as a student reporter, Garrett Grayson, and this was not the final product, Garrett Grayson. This was a young, raw Garrett Grayson. But when he came in for Pete Thomas, there was a huge uplift in that locker room. So that can happen too. That's what I mean. Like, there's just so many intangibles that, frankly, I mean, that's why a coach gets paid the big bucks to. Yeah, they are evaluating on talent and system knowledge, blah, blah, blah. But there's, some of that, intangible aspect that they need to nail and get right.
What do you like about the offense?
The running backs, I think, quite good. Obviously, Jalen Dupree looks like what we thought he would. Lloyd Avant, I thought he'd have some impact, but he's been better even than I thought he would be. We know Justin Marshall can be good. He's just not healthy enough. But if you can get him on the field, that's important. I think we're going to see some Javian Kennard. We saw a little bit of him against UNC. He's certainly dynamic. We've seen it in practice a little bit. So I don't think he's going to become the feature back this year or anything like that. But I think you have a lot of weapons there. Jackson Warren can be good. They obviously did not do a good enough job getting him the ball against UNC. Got to find ways to make sure he's involved in getting touches. The O-line, I should highlight them. I mean, I think we all had big question marks about them, and I think by and large they've been pretty good. I think especially in run block. So you can see the pieces there to have a pretty good offense. You just need, that consistency again, whether it's a mix of play calling or quarterback play or both, which I'm sure it's both. It's the chance is there.
What's your gut say? Like, we're recording this on Thursday, September 11th, so a lot can change between now and next week, and we'll provide updates with context as that comes. But does this feel like it's a true competition? Does it feel like we're inching towards the competition, but it's more of like a wake-up call of, hey, get it together, Brayden, or we're going to have to do something? Just kind of where are you at in that sense?
Yeah, I do think it is real competition. I know people have wondered that. I would say we have not seen real competition in the past. I do think this is.
It was definitely different with how the reps were split from anything that we've seen in the past.
And even, obviously coaches can phrase things how they want. And Jay's a veteran, but he's never spoken like this about, like, when he's talked about quote unquote competition, it's always been broadly like, every player has to earn their spot. It's never been, JB's getting number one reps. We got to get the quarterback play going better. If I had to say today who starts on September 20th, I'd probably slightly lean toward BFN gets another with a short leash. But also going back to when BFN took the job, it's interesting to look at that because as early season bye, Jay actually after that Washington State game had been pretty supportive of Clay Millen, had really defended him. And if I remember correctly, I think Jay put a lot of the onus on himself, said, we didn't get him in good spots. So I thought, well, he's not going to bench him. He was protecting him. And this has been kind of the opposite of saying, Brayden needs to be better. So I don't know what any of that means, if anything. Like I say, I probably slightly lean toward BFN gets the start against UTSA, but I think it's a hard call right now. I'm not sure if obviously they are not going to tell us, this week. I kind of wonder if
might be a game time type deal.
I wouldn't be shocked. Jay's usually quite open on these type of things, but given the kind of pressure going on, I wouldn't be shocked if they let it run.
All right. Phenomenal insight from my good friend Kevin Lytle. We've got more of that interview coming up. I'd love to see the comments in the Toyota chat, some of which will be addressed by the things that Kevin and I talk about coming up here. If not, I can always come back full circle. I saw somebody in the Toyota chat at one point compare Jackson Brousseau to potentially a Maddox Madsen type quarterback, which I do feel like is probably an accurate representation. I've talked a lot about Brayden's arm talent, his physical abilities, how high his ceiling is. Jackson is a big, strong guy. I think he, based on what I've seen in a small sample size, is maybe a little bit more athletic than Madsen, but I do think more along those lines, pocket passer, a little bit simpler, but that honestly could be what the offense needs at this point. You just need to find a way to get some consistency. Again, we'll keep this interview rolling, a lot more insight from Kevin to come. Let's shout out our partners and we'll keep it going. Trucks have always been a part of Toyota's DNA. For generations, Toyota has built durable legends destined for greatness and perfect for Colorado. Whether you're conquering off-road trails, whether you're hauling the weight of the world, there's a Toyota truck that's just right for you. Check out the Tacoma. You can check out the Land Cruiser as well. Toyota offers 17 models with available all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive like the Epic 4Runner. They also offer more low and zero-emission vehicles combined than any other automaker to give customers numerous choices to reduce their carbon footprint. 16 hybrid vehicles to choose from, like the Tundra iForce Max hybrid truck. Not to be outdone, though, Toyota SUVs take command on the road and on the trail. It's what makes them so perfect for Colorado living. If you're cruising around Cap Hill, awesome. If you're going around, the metro area in general, Arvada, Aurora, perfect in-town vehicle. If you want to go to the mountains, you want to go off-roading, you want to go the slope, Toyota has got something for you. Toyota is a proud partner of CSU Athletics. If you missed it this week, really cool partnership announced. And the official vehicle of DNVR, Toyota, let's go places. All right, our friends at Coors Light also encourage you to never lose your chill. Life's going to test you. You're going to see your alma mater nearly lose to one of the worst football programs in the country. You're going to have to deal with Twitter trolls. You're going to have to deal with inconveniences like the house you just bought having to get a full furnace replaced and all kinds of stuff. It's just the little things that add up, and it's the little things that can make you really worked up and can make you honestly just a bad vibe. You're not a good hang when you're in that state of mind. That's not what any of us want to be. You got to do the little things, go for a walk, take a deep breath, whatever you need to do to put yourself in that chill state. Then when you're kicked back, when you're cooling, when you're relaxing, crack open an ice cold Coors Light. There's nothing better than sitting there with an ice cold Coors Light. When the mountains turn blue, it's as cold as the Rockies. Coors Light is cold lagered, cold filtered, and cold packaged for that smooth finish. Make the most out of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door. Visit CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. All right. I'm with y'all in the Toyota chat, hoping to see a big game from Jalen Dupree against UTSA. Let's play part 2 of that interview with Kevin Lytle, get more insight. He'll give some thoughts on the defense. The rest of the team, we'll talk a little bit of CSU football at the end as well. Again, CSU soccer cracked the top 25 for the first time ever. Been really cool. And at the very end, I'll wrap up with my power rankings. How low am I going to drop CSU? We shall see in just a couple minutes. But here is part 2 with Kevin Lytle. Feel about the defense to this point. I mean, you got a pretty potent UTSA offense coming in. They have some defensive questions as well, I think. So
Yeah.
could, at least on paper, be a chance to put some points on the board. But I think you would have said that last week too. But I don't know, like the defense, like we said, I think UNC had like 13 drives. They only had one of which that was 10 or more plays. Both their scoring drives were products of turnovers where they got the ball north of the 50. Like, I think you have to credit CSU there, but then at the same time, as much as you liked about what they did in the run game and some of the stops and getting off the field, like really when the game's on the line, you extend the drive with a personal foul on 4th and 25. And then again, whether it's a catch or not is up for debate, but I think you'd like to see your DB, like in that situation, definitively like win that rep. And I don't know, it felt very reminiscent of 2023, despite schematically looking nothing like it.
Yeah, totally. The final 45 seconds were alarmingly like the past few years, which, like you say, in different style, but the result almost ended up the same. So that's frustrating. We've seen some good bits. They're good on third down. It's funny, given I think the train horn and everything, there are a lot of jokes about like, God, they never got off the field on third down. It's like, well, that's not true at all. Like UNC was like 3 for 15, I think it was on third down. So they were actually quite good there. You'd like to see it be a little bit more dynamic and disruptive. We haven't seen much from Donut yet. I did expect and still do, I think, to see more there. So I think, just more disruptiveness and perhaps consistency because, I think for pretty decent stretches, they were good, but sometimes where they struggle. Now, again, you could probably point to the offense not helping them in a lot of ways, but, defense has not been great, but isn't the biggest, point of concern at the moment for me. But UTSA is really going to test. I think we've said this a million times. We're going to learn so much about this team in the next 2 weeks. I think a lot more than we've learned in the last 2 weeks.
Kind of off of that, and that's actually exactly where I wanted to take this. I know they've played bigger games in terms of the audience reach, like obviously the showdowns against Dion, even probably the bowl game, like you could say, had bigger stages. I don't know if it's over dramatic to say like these are the 2 most important games of Norvell's CSU career to this point.
Yeah, I mean they're certainly very important because you're playing somewhat like for like teams. Teams that certainly admin will be evaluating heavily who you're against. CSU talks a lot about, basically they don't use this phrasing because admin don't like, calling yourself group of 5, group of 6, but basically CSU wants to be in the top of the group of 5, 6, whatever we call it these days. And to do that, you beat teams like UTSA and Washington State when you have them at home. And ESPN's matchup predictor, which is kind of garbage, but it gives you a little bit of a thought. has both these games as basically 50-50. I've had the UTSA game circled for 6 months as a super big swing game in the season. And then when you throw on top sort of the drama around the UNC game, yeah, it just feels very huge. If CSU goes out and wins this game, all of a sudden the mood swings pretty dramatically of like, oh, they fixed some stuff in the bye week. They're getting all the new pieces put together. This team's gonna go make a run. Whereas if you lose, it's like, told you everything's broken. So it's just a huge, huge game and 2 weeks because Mountain West looks very gettable. So if you can, get a couple wins here and have some momentum, holy cow, like everything's on the table.
I'm with you. And that's, I think, the thing that you have to keep in mind from a rational standpoint is every goal that they set out, other than going undefeated, I suppose, is still on the table at this point. You could go 1-3 in non-conference, run the table, win the league, and it's still obviously objectively a really good year. But if you fall to 1-3, that's a really deep hole to climb out of, it feels like. And like, even if you do go 1-3, do I still think this team has a good chance of making a bowl game, even finishing north of 500? I do, because like you said, the Mountain West doesn't feel super daunting. Like, there's good teams, it's not trash, but it doesn't feel like it's crazy top heavy.
Yeah,
I don't know. I just optically, this feels like this kind of not only sets the tone for the rest of the season, but really kind of sets the course for like, where does the future of this program go?
Yeah, the losing the next two, the pressure and outside noise would be really, really significant, which can affect a team. I mean, there's just
I think we've seen it happen.
No way around that. So yeah, that would be tough. Because I mean, optics do matter too. Obviously, your record matters the most, but optics matter. I would imagine there's going to be a big crowd for the UTSA game, especially a student crowd. By the way, students freaking incredible job.
Yeah.
And you can't, when you lose those opportunities, that's tough. I use the phrase in a story of losing the moderates. Now, on social media, frankly, it doesn't tend to be the moderates. People that are mad say it really loudly, but that's not actually everyone. It's some, and some of those are, those people matter too. You have, your super supportive people who almost no matter what will be on board. And then on the other side, you're kind of super negative people that kind of want to be mad about everything. And then a lot of people somewhere in the middle. When you start losing the majority of that middle, that's when you get in trouble. And I think if CSU were to lose these next two, a lot of that middle would be gone as far as support for where the program's at. Not gone, but
mad. I mean, it just, especially coming off of the bowl game, like, you earned some goodwill with the Washington performance, but they haven't validated any of the, championship DNA, the talk of, we've got a third-year quarterback, we're really going to open up the offense and elevate. Like, it just optically, like, I just think they've got to earn some style points these next couple of weeks. Like, wins are wins. If you're sitting at 3-1, people are going to feel good. But I think for like really getting people to buy in.
Yeah, well, and you need some significant wins. I mean, a lot of, if you look at the record of the wins, the record of the team CSU has beat in Norvell's era, it's mostly poor teams. Obviously, there's like the Boise win. There are a few decent ones in there, but mostly it's beating the bad teams, which of course you need to do, but you need to beat some of the good teams too. And, a UTSA, a Washington State would start to help convince people, and then you would have your chance in Mountain West play to go make some noise and, dominate at home is a really good way to go, given you have 7 home games. The crowd's been good. If CSU takes care of business at home, they're going to be in a great spot.
I don't want to take up too much of your time here, but I do. You're a football fan as well, much more so than myself. CSU women's soccer, undefeated, ranked in the top 25 in the coaches poll for the first time ever. What are your thoughts on just the ascension of this program? And I mean, is it crazy for me to think that in terms of a year-to-year expectation standpoint, like, there's a realistic world where CSU soccer could kind of be the premier dominant program? Like, football, basketball are always going to be bigger, but you've got such a strong local talent pool. Like, I don't know. It just feels like a sport CSU should be good at, especially in the Pac-12.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of talent here in Northern Colorado. Obviously, I've covered high school sports for a long time too, and seen a lot of that. And I mean, in Fort Collins, Windsor, Timnath area, there are always 10 plus kids a year. It seems going to Division One, and CSU's slowly getting more of them. I know a player from Fossil Ridge. I believe she's maybe junior, maybe even a sophomore. Kids commit really early in soccer. Just committed to CSU, so starting to get some of those local wins. Yeah, I don't think there's any reason this program shouldn't be contending for titles in the Mountain West this year and the pack moving forward. I think you asked when they brought Keely Hagan and a couple players to a press conference a week or two ago, like what's changed in perception, kind of as you recruit and whatnot. And her answer was basically, we started winning. Fair enough, and that's true. Winning gets attention. They're 6-0 right now as we record, and the program's all-time wins record is 12. So, don't want to count your chickens, but they should be breaking that this year. And yeah, it'd be really cool if they were to make a postseason because, yeah, I think that's a program that can be pretty darn good. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of women's soccer talent. Colorado, California, Texas are in the West. And it seems like CSU is really starting to tap into that pretty well. Even some of these transfers, Keeley seems to be doing a good job of kids that have, especially Colorado kids that maybe went elsewhere first, but then get them as they come, decide they want to come back. So the program seems to be in a pretty good spot.
I'm excited to see kind of what happens, and I know it's apples to oranges. I'm not trying to compare it to football, but I guess I am. But just what I said about the defense and just kind of seeing some of the same struggles that we saw a couple years ago. You could say the same thing about the offense, the procedural penalties, poorly timed turnovers, that type of stuff. Well, it felt like CSU soccer, like you'd seen a rise the last couple of years, and then they'd be winning 1-0, and then they'd give up these late goals. And it just feels like they're grinding out wins in a way that used to kind of hold them back. And it all feels like you've got, tangible proof of no, this is legitimate, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. That's basically what Olivia Fout was saying when she was in that press conference of the past couple of years, we had too many of those where a late lead would turn into a draw, and eventually those catch up to you, especially once you get into league play and you're fighting for standings, which therefore is fighting for seeding in the conference tournament and all that jazz. So yeah, I think it's you're just seeing good signs. I don't pretend to be covering that program closely. I hope to get out to a couple games this year, but it seems like the depth and overall talent has really improved, and we're kind of with that results.
Last thing I just wanted to ask you is kind of your thoughts on the whole game day operation as a whole. Like we've seen CSU really be ambitious the last couple of years with just trying stuff, and we've talked about that a lot off the record of wow, look what happens when you give a little bit of effort. But what are your thoughts on kind of what you've seen from the game day process?
Yeah, overall good. I mean, some more tweaks. Obviously, the train horn was the big conversation this week. I know not everyone loves the idea. I like the idea of the third down train horn. I think it's a very Fort Collins thing. I think it needs to be turned down a bit. I think it probably will be. John Weber. Yeah, John Weber has answered some folks now. I think it's like a real train horn. I don't really know. Do those things have a volume switch? But that's for someone else to worry about. So get that tweaked, fixed. Mostly I think things are good. Students keep responding, so I think that's a good sign that things are going well. I know they started the student loyalty program or whatever it is, where you can rack up points. And I think, they're doing double points for going to the volleyball match on Friday, the whiteout. So I think that's a really cool idea because we've said for a while, you're kind of playing a long game with students. You want them to come this week and have a great time, make it a really tough experience. But students become graduates who become people in the workforce, who some of them become people with money, who some of them become people who buy season tickets, who donate to the program and all that. And CSU for years had classes going through that. They did not give them much to want to come back to. So if you can keep building this down the road, it's going to pay off in some of these, kids coming back as, grown adults with families and money. So I think it's good efforts. Not everything comes off. I appreciate that they seem to listen and be willing to hear feedback rather than clap back at feedback. Not that anyone else has ever done that before, but yeah, I think overall positive. There are tweaks to be made, but they seem to try to do that, and there's minimal stuff to complain about. Yes, I would love the train horn to come, be quieter. I hope is next time. I know, it's hard for us. We don't really hear the PA from where we're sitting because there's press box noise too, so it's kind of just all jumbled. I think there are some issues with that and scoreboard, time down, blah blah blah. I think that'll get ironed out. I think sometimes you have new people, new roles, so I think those will get ironed out. But those are some little things that they can fix, and I think they always do. But no, overall, I think game day is pretty cool.
Kevin, you're the man. Thank you as always for joining us. I'll make sure you guys are subscribing to the Coloradoan, support local journalism, support everything. Just having a minor stroke. It's cool. We'll keep going. It's live TV. Do you got anything you want to promote though? You got any features or anything to keep an eye on?
Oh, that's a good question. Most of the bye week's a little quieter. Mostly just updates on the team, some CSU basketball recruiting and Maui news, which obviously is really exciting. That program is obviously in a good spot right now. And then, all into UTSA week next week.
We're in the thick of it, man. We're in the thick of it.
Yeah, totally.
So much love to my good friend, Kevin Lytle. He does a tremendous job. Make sure you support his work. One of the best journalists, period, in the state. I think the best sports beat reporter of any traditional newspaper. It's really not even close. Paul says, man, everyone did not like how loud that train horn was. Whatever happened to the key shaking? Back in college, we did that either at kickoff or third down. I think it was both, if I remember correctly. That was definitely a thing throughout Hughes, even early Canvas Stadium. Feels like it kind of went away around COVID-ish. I mean, there's a lot of stuff from back in the day that's just no longer part of the experience. I mean, I missed the trombone suicide. I know for legal reasons, it's not ever going to come back. It's too much of a liability for the school. But I mean, they don't do excuse my language, those kids in the car, plug their ears, but they don't do the fuck them up, CSU chant either. Like there's just a lot of stuff that's pretty different from back in the day. But I think it's exciting to see the administration taking some chances and exciting students. And I mean, the fact that you're drawing 15,000 plus students for a September non-conference game is incredible. I mean, there's just there's an excitement and there's a want to be at the games from the students in a way that just was not true for a long time. Even, I was fairly fortunate in my early years of being a student, getting to catch the height of the McElwain era. And even then, it was kind of an uphill battle. It was a little bit harder to go to games. You had to go out to Hughes and all that. But I think that's the most exciting thing, is that there's an energy and there's an excitement. And obviously, like with the way the fans have been showing up, you saw it with the bowl game. At some point, though, the results have got to be there. And that's why I think these next 2 weeks are absolutely massive for CSU. With that in mind, before we get out of here, I did want to get into the third edition of our 2025 Mountain West Power Ranking for football. I don't know why I made that so complicated, but let's get into it. I'm not going to lie. I moved CSU down significantly more than I would have wanted to, but I felt like the performance against UNC had to have drastic results. I've talked a lot about my process with all of this. Admittedly, I'm being a little bit tongue-in-cheek today because the performance was so bad. I don't actually think CSU is as low as I'm going to put them on here, but it's kind of a statement. They got to be in a timeout. They've got to earn that goodwill back after seeing a lot of it go out the window. Starting at the bottom, we didn't have any movement, 12 through 10. Nevada's at 12. New Mexico, 11, with an intriguing opportunity against UCLA this weekend. UCLA sucks. I think there's a world in which the Bruins have a slow start. New Mexico gets that run game going a little bit, where things could maybe get a little bit interesting there. It's not like it's a hostile atmosphere playing in UCLA or anything like that. But I'm rooting for the Lobos. Number 10, we've got Utah State, who I thought fared pretty well offensively. I didn't watch the entire game, but I watched a lot of it against Texas A&M. they've got some holes defensively that they've got to figure out. They've got to tackle with more consistency. Both times I've watched them this season, the poor tackling has stood out to me. But really that bottom tier has stayed pretty solid here over the first couple of weeks. We did have some movement in this next tier. I've got San Diego State at 9. They got thumped by Washington State, who looked pretty average in their matchup with Idaho. Again, as Kevin said, weird stuff happens in these first couple of weeks. But I just have some questions about them offensively. I like their pass rushers, and they've got some decent athletes in the backfield. Quarterback play is a question for me, just consistency as a whole offensively. At 8, we have San Jose State, who's dropped about 5 spots from the initial ranking. They just have not been very convincing to this point. Actually, we're in it against Texas for the first quarter or so, but the turnovers are a struggle with them. They just do not look like the same team without Nick Nash out there, which is honestly to be expected. At 7, we've got CSU. I dropped them a full 5 spots, which is about as much as I feel like I can drop them with the principle of the exercise staying true to itself without me like completely abandoning how I typically do this. Again, realistically, they're probably more like 4 or 5. But I wanted to make a statement, and based on how they performed against UNC, we dropped them out of the top half of the league. They've got to earn that ranking back. Wyoming up 3 spots to number 6. Defensively, they've been very impressive. Caden Anderson's health could be a question. They've got a tough matchup against Utah. Fun reignite of the old WAC and Mountain West days. It's cool to kind of see that matchup. I love that Utah's willing to go to Laramie. Kudos to them. That's not a fun place to play. I've got Fresno at 5. They're up 3 spots. Again, if I'm being truthful, I don't really know if I feel like CSU is a worse team than Wyoming or Fresno. But those teams both had convincing wins last week. I think you could argue, beating up on Northern Iowa if you're Wyoming, or beating a bad Oregon State team on the road, which is why I gave Fresno the bump. Is how much did we really learn about those teams? That's debatable. But again, your performances have to have consequences, and what we saw against UNC was just unacceptable, and that's why we're dropping CSU so significantly. Probably back in the top 4 next week, but we shall see. Hawaii, I've got them up 1 spot to number 4. Love what they've got going offensively. Ashlock is having a great season. Defensively, they seem to have made a leap, which was going to be the big question for them. I think they are a fringe contender to make the Mountain West Championship game. Number 3, I've got UNLV. It's the highest I've had them all year. They were 6 in the preseason. I've jumped them from 4 to 3 this week. Nice win over UCLA. I'm not trying to put them down, but did get outscored significantly in that second half. They were up big in the first half. It was like 23-0. They're rolling, and they didn't really step on the throat. And with the way that, Idaho State moved the ball on them a couple weeks ago, I still just have some concerns about that defense holding up. Got outscored 20-7 in the second half. So that's why I'm still just a little bit reluctant to buy into UNLV. I know they were pretty popular with the consensus. Number 2, we're going Air Force. They're up 1 spot from last week as well. They did not play last week, but I just believe in that team. They run the ball with consistency. Defensively, they look stout. And with the way they finished the season last year, I inherently am always going to believe in Troy Calhoun teams unless they're just absolutely disastrous. And a number 1, without further ado, Boise State. They've been there at the top. I said it after that USF game 1 that USF looked pretty good. Maybe everybody was overreacting too. Don't panic. And Boise has come out the last couple of weeks and really looks solid. They thumped Eastern Washington last week, got the run game going. Madsen threw for 300 plus. Really solid performance for them. But that's where I'm at with the league right now. This is the Mountain West Power Ranking 3.0. I'll be curious to hear what you guys agree with, what you disagree with, all of that fun stuff. That's where we're at. Before we get out of here, do want to again shout out CSU Volleyball, who's going to host Notre Dame tonight in the Whiteout. If you have an opportunity to get to Moby, recommend you do so. If you're in the Denver metro area, an opportunity to see the CSU women's soccer team, the undefeated top 25 CSU women's soccer team, take on DU. Big weekend for both of those programs. Obviously, the focus tends to be football and basketball on this show, but I do what I can to shout out the wonderfully talented ladies we have at CSU who are continuing to kill it on multiple fronts. Always cool to see those programs. I do want to just briefly say shout out to Eric Lacroix. I'm going to miss working with him. He did his last show on Avs Beat, which I also work on. I want to shout out my Bear Creek Bears as well. 3-0 on the year, averaging 45 points a game, only giving up 6. Usually things fall apart for them come league play, but Tom Fennell's back. They're looking like vintage BC, which is great to see. Shout out to everybody in Ram Nation. We've got a huge week coming up. Obviously, it'll be really interesting to see how those reps shake out at practice. I will give you as much information as I have as it comes available. I'm hoping for a big response against UTSA. I mean, if you come back and bounce back these next couple of weeks, there's still everything on the table for this team. I mean, you could make the playoff. I know it feels insane to say that after the UNC game. The likelihood of that is not great, but it's on the table, and that's the point. 1 week does not have to define your season. Yeah, that's all I've got. I know it's been a tough week for a lot of people, just all kinds of stuff. Thinking of Evergreen High School. Thank you for listening to the DNVR Rams podcast presented by Branded Bills. Head to brandedbills.com. Use the code BBDNVR for 15% off of your first order. Much love, y'all. Shout out to our super producer, Tiff. We are always proud to be. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.